Elijah Blue Allman actually has to southern New Hampshire to this area, but he's now in jail because he was arrested for the second time in just 3 days.
Cher is 79 years old, and right now she is fighting the hardest battle of her entire life. It is not about music, not about fame, not about her legacy on stage. It is about saving her 49-year-old son from dying. The court papers she filed last week read like a horror story, and what you are about to hear will genuinely break your heart and make you question everything you thought you knew about this family. The desperate petition that shook Hollywood. On Wednesday, the 15th of April in the year 2026, Cher walked her legal team into the Los Angeles County Superior Court and filed one of the most painful documents any mother could ever put her name to. The petition asks a judge to place her youngest son, Elijah Blue Allman, under a temporary conservatorship of his estate because, according to Cher, he is now gravely disabled. Her attorney, a probate specialist named Justin Gold, drafted the filing alongside Gabrielle Vidal of Loeb & Loeb, the same firm that stood beside Cher during her first conservatorship attempt years earlier. The next hearing is scheduled for the 24th of April, just days away. What makes this filing different from the last one is that Cher is not asking to control her son herself. She learned from watching the Britney Spears disaster, and this time she is nominating a licensed private fiduciary named Jason Rubin to take over Elijah's financial affairs. The petition is only for the estate, not the person, because Elijah is already locked inside a psychiatric hospital in New Hampshire, waiting for trial on felony charges. The opening lines of the filing are devastating. Cher writes that the life of Elijah Allman has significantly deteriorated since the prior petition, that his situation has become dire on multiple fronts, that his mental health has severely deteriorated, his financial situation is terrible, and his substance dependency is at its worst. She describes a man who has no concept of money, who cannot manage his own resources, and who cannot withstand fraud or undue influence from strangers who see him coming. Then she lays out the pattern that has been destroying him for years. After he receives his trust distribution, he checks into a hotel, usually the Chateau Marmont, buys and uses substances until he runs out of money, and then ends up in the hospital or overdoses on the floor. The numbers Cher presents to the judge are staggering. $200,000 in unpaid income taxes, $18,000 owed to a substance dealer who tracked Elijah down to collect, $50,000 in damage to his most recent Airbnb rental. 14 other rental properties were damaged with thousands of dollars in cigarette burns. 18 different hotels have kicked him out for screaming obscenities and acting erratically in front of other guests. $6,500 a month in court-ordered spousal support that keeps going unpaid. There are also details in the petition that go beyond money. Cher alleges that Elijah has aggressively propositioned a young hotel maid, that he has started multiple grease fires by zoning out while cooking and forgetting food on the stove, and that he was once found unconscious behind the wheel of his car in the middle of traffic, only revived when paramedics arrived with emergency treatment. His older half-brother, Devon Allman, filed a sworn declaration supporting the petition, and what Devon wrote is the most haunting part of the entire case. But to understand why Devon said what he said, and why Cher is doing this publicly right now, you have to go back and see exactly how Elijah ended up in a locked New Hampshire psychiatric ward in the first place. The arrests that sent him spiraling. The events that forced this new filing began on the evening of Friday, the 27th of February in 2026, at around 7 o'clock at night. Elijah Blue Allman arrived at St. Paul's School in Concord, New Hampshire, a prestigious private boarding school that was hosting a playoff ice hockey game and a winter dance that evening. He was driven there by a woman in her late 40s who was later questioned but never detained. Elijah told the staff he was a prospective parent, and he slipped inside the dining hall as students were leaving. What happened next shocked the faculty. He was smoking openly, making inappropriate comments to young female students, and behaving belligerently with the adults who tried to redirect him. At one point, he physically poked a student with his cane. A safety officer finally forced him outside, and the Concord police arrived to arrest him on 2 counts of simple assault, along with criminal trespass, criminal threatening, and disorderly conduct. The rector of the school, Kathy Giles, sent an email to concerned parents saying the incident would never have drawn national attention if not for his celebrity status. Less than 48 hours later, on the morning of Sunday, the 1st of March, the situation became far more serious. A woman inside her home on Ministerial Road in Windham, New Hampshire, called 911 in a panic. She was hiding in a closet, whispering to the dispatcher that a man had just broken into her house. Officers arrived, followed fresh footsteps in the snow, and discovered that the back door had been pried open with a pair of loppers, shattering the glass pane inside. When officers entered the house, they found Elijah Blue Allman sitting calmly on the living room couch, smoking a cigarette, as if he owned the place. He told the officers that the homeowner had given him permission to enter and to break the door, a claim the homeowner immediately and firmly denied. There was a fresh cigarette burn on the living room rug. The damage to the back door alone was around $1,700, which elevated the charge to a Class B felony for criminal mischief, on top of burglary and breach of bail from the St. Paul's incident just 2 days earlier. At his arraignment on the 2nd of March at Salem District Court, the judge ordered him held on preventive detention with no bail. Elijah was first sent to the Rockingham County Department of Corrections in Brentwood, New Hampshire. Somewhere between the middle of March and the middle of April, his condition deteriorated so severely that officials transferred him out of the jail and into a locked psychiatric hospital to restore him to competency, so he could even face the criminal charges against him. He has been in that hospital ever since, and his mother has been watching from across the country, unable to speak with him, unable to reach him on the phone, and unable to do anything except file paperwork. But the overdoses, the hotel disasters, the aggression, none of this appeared out of nowhere. And to understand the depth of what Cher is trying to save him from, we need to look back at the year that broke him open. The overdose in the desert. On Father's Day weekend in June of 2025, at about 25 minutes past 1 o'clock in the afternoon on the 14th, sheriff's deputies from the Morongo Basin Station in San Bernardino County responded to an emergency call at a private home in Landers, California. The caller reported that a man was acting erratically inside. Paramedics were already working on him when deputies arrived. They discovered substances scattered throughout the home, and Elijah was rushed to a hospital in Joshua Tree, where medical staff barely pulled him back from the edge. Entertainment reporters who visited the scene said he was incredibly lucky to be alive that afternoon. Cher reportedly flew to be by his side within hours. He stayed in recovery until about the 22nd of June, when doctors finally cleared him to leave. His estranged wife, Mary Angela King, who still goes by the nickname Queenie, gave a statement to People magazine shortly after. She said that while it was true Elijah had faced personal challenges in the past, his commitment to sobriety and his loyalty to the people he loved had always been a constant, and that she would always root for him from a place of deep respect for the resilience he continued to show. It was a generous statement, considering everything that had happened between her and Cher over the previous 3 years. Just weeks after the overdose, Elijah was hit with another blow. On the 8th of August in 2025, a judge in Los Angeles Superior Court ordered him to pay $6,500 every single month in spousal support to Mary Angela, payable in 2 installments on the 1st and the 15th of each month, retroactive to the 1st of July. Elijah missed that entire hearing because he was in rehab at the time and could not attend. His estranged wife's financial declaration revealed the lifestyle they had once shared during happier years, including travel across Europe, stays in 5-star hotels, flights in first and business class, private pools, gyms, personal chefs, maids, and even a dedicated therapist. She said she had been unemployed since 2009 and had less than $4,000 to her name. By November of 2025, the financial situation had become so impossible that Michael Lehman, the trustee of the Greg Allman estate, agreed over a phone call with Mary Angela to pay $24,000 on Elijah's behalf directly from the trust. $14,000 of that went to her, and $10,000 went to her attorney. Elijah himself was in no condition to sign a check or answer an email. And the reason that trust money even exists, the reason there is a financial machine still pumping out payments to a man who cannot manage them, traces back to a tragedy from almost a decade ago. The father who left him a fortune and a curse. On the 27th of May in 2017, Greg Allman, the founder of the legendary Allman Brothers Band, died at his home outside of Savannah, Georgia, at the age of 69. Liver cancer had spread from his liver into his lungs, and it took him faster than his family was prepared for. His estate was estimated at somewhere between $5 million and $25 million, depending on which publication you read at the time. Greg had been a substance addict himself during much of his life. A detail Cher spoke about openly in a Vanity Fair interview in December of 2010, when she admitted he was simply an amazing man who happened to be a substance addict. The structure Greg left behind is called the G.A. Robbins Descendants Revocable Trust, administered by his longtime manager, Michael Lehman. Under its terms, Elijah receives $30,000 every 3 months, which adds up to $120,000 every single year. That money arrives like clockwork, whether Elijah is sober, in rehab, in the hospital, or unconscious on a hotel floor. According to Cher's petition, Elijah has burned through approximately $1 million in trust distributions over the last 6 years, with most of it going to substances and expensive hotels, primarily the Chateau Marmont. Legal experts say Greg made one painful oversight when he drafted the trust. He never included a discretionary clause that would allow the trustee to pause payments if a child became unable to handle the money responsibly. Because that clause does not exist, Michael Lehman cannot turn off the tap on his own. The only legal mechanism that can stop those quarterly deposits is a conservatorship, which is exactly what Cher is now asking the court to grant. And yet the debts and the substances and the overdoses are only half the reason this family is in court. The other half is a marriage, a whirlwind romance that became one of the most explosive celebrity legal battles in recent memory. Elijah first met Mary Angela King in the year 2013 in the city of Cologne, Germany, where he was receiving treatment for Lyme disease he had contracted during a trip to India. Mary Angela was a singer in a British pop group called King, and she was on a blind date with him when a friend pulled her aside and asked if she knew who he really was. She later told People magazine that she had no idea Elijah Blue was Cher's son when she first agreed to meet him. Their romance moved at lightning speed. They got engaged on the 25th of November, and they were married on the 1st of December, just 6 days later, in front of the fireplace at Elijah's Beverly Hills home. The marriage struggled almost from the beginning, and they legally separated on the 20th of April in 2020, with Elijah officially filing for divorce in November of 2021. But the story that truly set the family on fire happened on the night of their 9th wedding anniversary. According to a sworn declaration Mary Angela later filed, she and Elijah had been reconciling in a New York City hotel room when 4 men suddenly arrived at their door and physically removed Elijah. Mary Angela claimed one of them told her directly that they had been hired by Elijah's mother. When the declaration became public, the internet exploded with accusations that Cher had kidnapped her own adult son. Cher responded in an interview with the New York Post, and her words were pure Cher. She said she did not do it, but that if she had done it, she would not admit it anyway. She said, "You never stop being a mother, that you go to the mattresses when you are trying to save your children, and that she did not care what anyone thought." And that was supposed to be resolved years ago, before this second petition ever had to be filed. The first conservatorship that failed. On the 27th of December in 2023, Cher filed her first attempt at a conservatorship, with her attorney Gabrielle Vidal telling Judge Jessica Uzcategui in open court that this was a life-and-death proposition for her son. Vidal argued that Elijah had been placed on involuntary psychiatric holds multiple times during that year, that he had a secondary diagnosis of schizoaffective disorder with periods of psychosis, and that 2 of his half-siblings had nominated Cher to serve as his temporary conservator. The court did not agree. At a hearing in late January of 2024, Judge Uzcategui denied the emergency conservatorship request. She said she did not question Cher's motivations, but she said fears alone are not evidence on which a court can make a legal finding. Elijah, through his own attorney Stephen Brumer, fought back fiercely. In a declaration he filed in April of that year, Elijah wrote that he had struggled with addiction, but that he was not mentally ill, and that the world was full of addicts who did not have trust distributions and still destroyed themselves. He said the only person who could save him from his demons was himself. He even took a subtle shot at his mother, writing that he had personal knowledge she did not manage her own finances and therefore had grave concerns about the court allowing her to manage his. Through private mediation in September of 2024, the 2 sides reached a settlement, and the petition was dismissed. But Cher made sure it was dismissed without prejudice, meaning she preserved her legal right to come back and file again if things got worse. Elijah reportedly promised to hire a business manager and to commit to his sobriety. According to the latest petition, he never fulfilled either promise. And now, with his freedom in the hands of a New Hampshire judge, his mother is about to do something she has not done in decades, which is to finally tell the full story of what raising him has cost her. What comes next for Cher and Elijah? The next hearing in the conservatorship case is set for the 24th of April, with a separate hearing on the spousal support issue scheduled for the 6th of May. Elijah's legal team now includes the celebrity divorce attorney Laura Wasser, and insiders close to the situation strongly suspect that Cher is the one quietly paying Wasser's fees, which tells you something real about the relationship underneath all the courtroom drama. A mother who is allegedly destroying her son in public is also privately funding the very attorney defending him from her. That contradiction is the entire truth of this family. California passed a law known as Senate Bill 43, which Governor Newsom signed on the 10th of October in 2023. That law expanded the definition of gravely disabled to include severe substance use disorder on its own, without requiring a co-occurring mental illness. Cher's April 2026 filing uses the phrase gravely disabled very deliberately because her legal team is invoking that new standard directly. This case is shaping up to be the first major celebrity test of the post-Britney Spears reform era. Cher is 79 years old, and she has been fighting this same battle inside her family for more than 4 decades. In that Vanity Fair interview back in 2010, she admitted that both of her sons ended up with the same substance issues as their fathers, and that it jumped a generation and landed on her children. Her second memoir, which is expected to cover the years of raising Elijah and watching him fall apart, is now expected in May of 2026, right as this legal battle reaches its peak. Whatever Cher has been keeping quiet all these years, the world is finally about to hear it in her own voice. That is the full story of what is happening to Elijah Blue Allman right now. And honestly, it is hard to watch any of it unfold. Tell us in the comments whether you think Cher is doing the right thing, or whether she is crossing a line.